Hello and welcome to our 7-8 minutes of weekly Torah talk. Our guest today is Rabbi Shawn Israel Zevit. He is the lead rabbi of Congregation Mishkan Shalom in Philadelphia. Hello, Rabbi. Thank you for being with us.
Shalom, Naimod. It's wonderful to be with you. Thank you for the honor.
I know that before we start, you wanted to do something.
To do something, yes, it's actually related to Torah study. That's something. I wanted to invite all those who are listening right now, including yourself. We have a bracha, which is traditional when we do Torah study, the usual bracha formula plus la'asok b'divrei Torah. And thanks to one of my colleagues, Rabbi Jeremy Schwartz, I like to add la'asok b'divrei Torah v'tzorchei tzibur, because in the Talmud it talks about those who work for the sake of the community are as if though they're studying Torah as well. And I want to honor all those who are listening for the different ways that we live Torah out in our lives. So if you will all join with me and call in response, Baruch,
Baruch
Atah,
Atah
Adonai,
Adonai
Eloheinu,
Eloheinu
Melech HaOlam,
Melech HaOlam
Asher Kitshanu,
Asher Kitshanu
B'mitzvotav,
B'mitzvotav
V'tzivanu,
V'tzivanu
La'asok,
La'asok
B'divrei Torah,
B'divrei Torah
V'tzorchei Tzibur.
V'tzorchei Tzibur.
Amen.
Amen.
And I could have added the feminine in there as well, Shechina and Yah and B'mitzvoteha, but we'll bank all that for another time.
Okay, so now I'll say a few words about the Parsha that we are about to discuss. It's Parshat Korach. In this Parsha, Korach incites a mutiny challenging Moses' leadership. He is accompanied by Datan and Aviram and 250 distinguished members of the community. Then the earth opens up and swallows the mutineers, as I'm sure all our viewers already know. A subsequent plague is stopped by Aaron. Aaron's staff miraculously blossoms and brings forth almonds to prove that his designation as high priest is divinely ordained. God commands that a truma from each crop of grain, wine, and oil, as well as of all firstborn sheep and cattle, be given to the Kohanim, to the priests. The first pasuk of our parsha says, "Vayikach Korach ben Yitzhar ben Kehat ben Levi v'Datan v'Aviram bnei Eliab ve'on ben Pelet bnei Reuven." Korach, the son of Yitzhar, the son of Kohat, the son of Levi, took himself to one side along with Datan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, and On, the sons of Pelet, descendants of Reuven. So, Rabbi, if people are challenging the leader, does this mean that the leader is not strong enough?
Well, this is a great question. I appreciate you raising it because so much of Korach does focus on the leadership styles, and I'm actually working with a couple of B'nai Mitzvah whose Parsha this is already for next year, and we're writing their Divrei Torah, and they're already asking, well, why did this arise at this time? You know, not only what Korach and Datan, Aviram, and the others, 250 that gathered, were the issues legitimate or not? The Torah doesn't dispute that there might be relevant issues and justified concerns, but what might Moshe and Aaron and Miriam and other leaders have missed that gave rise to the complaints? This isn't the first fetch session that has happened in the 2 years since leaving Mitzrayim to this post-Sinai moment.
So you're asking if there's a specific issue that triggered this incident.
Well, let's look. I always believe in text and context. We can pluck any pasuk out and make a case of it, but then we decontextualize. Right. So if we look at where we've just come from, we're a couple of years out. You can take this, you can take people out of slavery, but you don't necessarily take the internalized oppression out of the person. So just because we've been a couple of years meandering doesn't mean that suddenly everyone is feeling free. And what preceded this moment was, in fact, when Moshe sent Aaron, Kalev, and 10 other representatives of the tribes in to do a reconnaissance mission to the place that we were, longing for, in that place of promise to go directly to. And everyone had just been through a whole meltdown in response to 10 of the 12 saying, Nish Geferlach, this is their Anakim, they're giants there. They're, we don't have a chance. We were, in our own eyes, we were as if though we were grasshoppers to them. We didn't check that out with them, but we figured we don't have a chance. And all chaos ensues. So we have an example about how leaders use their position and create panic by projecting fear around. Right. That's just preceded this.
Right, and the people just realized that the 2 years in the desert are going to be extended to another 38 years.
Well, exactly. We don't, that part of the consequence to that balagan is this is going to be much longer endeavor. And in fact, we ended up staying at Kadesh Barnea for 13 years, according to the Torah, which is the longest spell anywhere. That's how much time it took to stabilize before we even made a next move. So it's in that context that this is, this is arising as well. So I think this aspect of leadership, and again, not that people don't have legitimate complaints. And Moshe and Aaron respond not by defending themselves or saying, our point is right, you are wrong. They don't enter that dynamic. They actually hit the floor. Basically, they go down on the ground and we say, we're offering this up to an authority greater than ourselves who will determine whether the path is right and whether the claims of our style are legitimate or not. Yeah. I wanted to read out to you a little midrash, which means, it's not in the Torah, but it comes from there, that our rabbis gave to this. And through the lens of Rabbi David Wolfblank, Zichron Livracha, a modern rabbi who died quite young, but who lifted this midrash up. And he quotes from the Talmudic era that Korach was a bit of a performance artist. Let's not forget everything. A rose by any other name is not another name Jewishly, right? So all the names, Moshe, the one who was drawn out of the water that flows, is different than Korach, who is the Iceman. Korach, meaning ice, where things get frozen. So right away we get, both of them are watery names, but one freezes things and one goes with the flow. Right. It's important for us to make a note that way. So he raises up this midrash that Korach felt, on one hand is a good argument. Who put you in charge? Shouldn't all the people? He's not a populist. It was good that you gave us the lineage of Korach is from Levi, from the priestly clan, the same as Moshe. So these are cousins now. And these are head honchos. It is not, Korach is using a populist argument. Shouldn't everybody, have an equal right? Let's clean up the swamp. Who put you in charge? I mean, there's reflections on contemporary leadership dynamics about people using populist argument for their own leadership, which the rabbis critique Korach, not on the content, but on the motivation for him trying to say, get rid of them, put me in charge, I have the people's, but he's not from the grassroots. Right. He's not working class. He's from a privileged group to begin with.
We might remember just a few weeks ago, Moshe himself made the argument that he would be happy to see all of Israel becoming prophets.
Let all my people be prophets, Yoshua. Don't worry about that. If the Ruach HaKodesh is coming through, let everyone, get a chance. So, so in the Midrash, the Midrash portrays Korach as saying, listen, just like everyone is part of the fringes, and there's, the techelet of the tzitzit are demarked as a one fringe. Shouldn't the whole talit and the tzitzit be blue? Everyone should be sky blue, and everyone should have equal, opportunity, although I should be the leader of this. And Moshe's view is, Gegas and Tehate, let it be, but the tzitzit also has one fringe of blue. We still need leaders. We need, it's without leadership and vision, you can also decay into chaos. And then it allows authoritarian or totalitarian leaders to arise and then usurp the people's will, not connected at all to divine direction or, let's say, the greater strategic plan. Right. And we can become self-serving, which we've seen many times, like kill the king, long live the new king, and then who replaces them after the revolution, or even worse than the person that was criticizing. Right. So I think part of the Parsha is telling us that beware when people claim to have every person in mind, question their credentials and what their intention is. Are they trying to look to both centralize or extinguish all other voices that way?
Right.
So the question of what type of leadership do we need and how we can take positive roles in addressing the issues we face as a Jewish people is not just yesterday or this Parsha's concern. Clearly, we're in this, in this moment too.
Mm.
So I wanted to bring in a Hasidic take, Simcha Bunim, who says that Korach reminds us is from an elite family, a straight-A student with natural leadership potential, and a destiny to be a leader among Israel. So how could such a promise come to tragic end? With, like you say, the earth swallowing them up. Now, one thing it's also good for us to note, there is a Korach rehabilitation program.
Right.
Because some of the Tehillim, the Psalms, are attributed to the house of Korach.
Right.
So part of the Torah is saying that may have been a wrong move, but we don't write people off forever because Korach's descendants composed some of the most beautiful songs of, to God and of Israel that we use today. So it's important, to take a look at that. But he suggests that the potential that Korach displayed and the critical feedback and the way he tried to split or embarrass leadership in front of the people, it's one thing to come and say, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? I have some things I'd like to, some critique to offer the Jewish Journal about how the Parshat HaShavua is happening. It's a different thing to say, I'm going on Facebook Live while you and I are talking with a whole list of critiques that thousands of people will see. So already there's a model, if you want to critique leadership, embarrassing people in public is considered an anathema to the Jewish way. It's like taking a life to embarrass somebody. Right. So that already was, a move that the content of the validity, but the way that they set up and showed up with 250 leaders and roused the populace was clearly not without a hidden agenda, or maybe a more, overt agenda that way. Right. So when we look to criticize or usurp leadership for self-gain, when we criticize someone else but are putting ourselves, B'Tselem Elohim, it all goes through me. Trust only in me and I'll look after you, is already seen as that the content gets erased by the approach, even if the content is legitimate.
Right. Rabbi,
and I think if we silence other opinion or don't leave room for divergent viewpoints, there's also a critique about that, because Moshe doesn't counter him with the same argument. If we challenge people back the same way, we can become the very thing that we disdain, right? But by matching fire with fire, we all get burned. What Moshe and Aaron do is they defer and they say, we're not going to play that game. We're going to defer to a greater source and bring it to the people. You want it to the people? Let's bring it to the people, as opposed to just your viewpoint that way.
Right. Rabbi, it's an eventful Parsha. We could discuss it for much longer, but our time is up, so thank you very much.
Well, can I say one thing in closing?
Sure,
then?
yes.
I just want to give the bracha that as we celebrate the great freedoms and opportunities that we value in this country and around the world, I just pray that we keep mindful and committed to that our course of independence and our own governance and leadership keeps mindful towards the promise that's yet to be, and not get swallowed up in the ground of misused liberty and inequity, making people afraid of others, dividing us in order to conquer, that is not the prime message of the Torah, and that the source of all life in our independence should be balanced by the humility that Moshe and Aaron showed, and the committed service. And may our arguments always be for the L'Shem Shamayim, for the sake of heaven.
Amen, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Gam Lecha, Chaver.